are unleashing every malignant scheme possible to try to undermine the principle of free and fair elections and to disenfranchise millions of people in Texas and beyond, that it's incumbent upon all of us to take a close look at how do we ensure that the congressional map writ large is as fair as possible in advance of the midterm.
But you don't think this is the same thing as what the Republicans are doing?
Of course it's not.
Because of what?
Because we believe in the principle.
There's Hakeem Jeffries, visibly rattled on CNN the moment someone dares to call out the Democrats' favorite hobby, rigging election maps under the guise of justice. 1 minute, it's a sacred defense of democracy. The next, it's a dirty trick, depending entirely on who's holding the pen. Delivered his closing shot. Welcome to the channel. Hollywood, he said. Democrats are in full meltdown mode over redistricting. Actors aren't philosophers or prophets, because they're not the ones drawing the lines. With the applause when they do it, it's called profits are on the line. But when Republicans do it, it's suddenly a threat to the Republic. They bow out of convenience. One of the best things President Trump ever did wasn't just for entertainment. To stop apologizing for playing by the same rules the left has exploited for years. It's just hiding behind selective outrage. Trader Joe's it's not just it can thrive. It's laughable. Martha Pollock showed it Scott Jennings stepping in to shut it reminded us all that defiance in defense of truth isn't rebellion, it's survival. This wasn't just comedy. It was a cultural reckoning, a reality check for a society that's forgotten how to stand its ground. Mayor's words cut through the illusions: stop apologizing, stop pretending, and start defending common sense.
The Republicans ahead of the midterms believe that it's going to be so necessary to get an upper hand that they have to actually redraw an entire state's congressional maps in order to get 5 whole seats out of it.
Oh, probably the same thing that it signifies when they did it in Illinois. They got a 14-3 delegation for Guise. Maryland 7-1, Massachusetts 9-0. We know what happened here in New York, California. Even though they have a commission, we all know what goes on there.
In a mid-cycle specifically, are all of those cases in mid-cycles?
All of these cases are where Democrats use the power they have to give them an
But just to be clear, because I didn't do the research that you did in the break here, is it that they're changing it after the actual census process where you're supposed to you're supposed to go through the congressional redistricting process?
Does it matter?
Yeah, it does. I think that's the whole point.
So it's okay for Democrats to upside the states 9-0 in Massachusetts.
Here's what I will say.
Finally, Mayor delivered his closing shot. Hollywood, he said, is the last place to look for moral clarity. Actors aren't philosophers or prophets, they're performers whose beliefs shift with the applause and whose principles fade when profits are on the line. And when the mob strikes, they don't bow out of guilt, they bow out of convenience. Mayor's message wasn't just the idea that Republicans in Texas are doing something outrageous by redrawing maps mid-decade. It's just hiding behind complete nonsense. Trader Joe's Democrats have been running this play for years. Martha Pollock showed after the 2016 election, and Mayor himself reminded us all that defiance like in North Carolina isn't rebellion, it's survival. And Virginia flipped at least 5 to 7 congressional seats. It was a cultural reckoning, a reality check for a society that's forgotten how to stand its ground. Hold back. Mayor's words cut through the record right back at stop apologizing, Illinois grabbed stop 43 seats, and start Maryland 71, Massachusetts 9. And in New York, Democrats nearly pushed through a wildly gerrymandered 224-seat map until the court stepped in. These aren't outliers. They're the strategy. The only reason it's suddenly being called a crisis is because Republicans finally stopped sitting on the sidelines and started using the same playbook. And here's Jeff, doing a perfect job of showing just how flimsy that double standard sounds when it's actually said out loud.
A complete and total failure for the American people. They have no credible track record of success. That's why House Republicans are afraid of the voters in 2026 in the midterm elections, and they're trying to cheat to win.
Cheat to win? I mean, but this is what majorities do. They redraw lines.
It is completely and totally unprecedented to engage in mid-decade redistricting. That is only being done because House Republicans in Texas and beyond know they have no track record of success.
New York, I've talked to some members of your delegation, Democrats who want New York to change the maps, try to add seats, Democratic seats in New York. Would you support that effort in your state?
Let me just simply say the maps in New York are not as fair as they could be.
That sounds to me like you're open to changing it.
I look forward to having a conversation with the governor about how do we ensure that New York maps are as fair as possible in an environment where you've got extreme MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump doing everything they can to undermine the will of the voters and undermine the principle of free and fair elections across the country.
You just accuse Republicans of rigging the election by changing the lines in the middle of the decade. Wouldn't Democrats do the same thing?
What we're committed to doing as Democrats in New York, in California, in New Jersey, across the country, is make sure.
Jeff tries to sound principled here, but even CNN isn't buying it. In 2022 alone, gerrymandered maps gave Democrats a projected 10 to 15 seat advantage nationwide, according to Princeton's gerrymandering project. And yet he has the audacity to act like Texas Republicans just invented this tactic. Is the last place to look for moral clarity. But let's be honest, aren't philosophers what's truly unprecedented is a Democrat who's actually getting called out for it on CNN. And whose principles fade when your entire argument crumbles the second someone strikes to your own party's they don't bow out of guilt. Maybe the real scheme isn't the maps. It's pretending you still have the idea that Republicans will take you think doing something outrageous by ignoring flags mid-decade Democrats when it comes to redistricting. Democrats have been running this place in the years, and if not the 2016 election, Mayor himself reminded us all that states like it really helps the channel growing. Until next time, this wasn't just a congressional seat. It was a cultural reckoning, a reality check for a society that's forgotten how to stand its ground. Hold back. Mayor's words threw their own record right back at them. Stop apologizing. Illinois grabbed 43 seats and start Maryland 71, Massachusetts 9, and in New York, Democrats nearly pushed through a wildly gerrymandered 224-seat map until the court stepped in. These aren't outliers. They're the strategy. The only reason it's suddenly being called a crisis is because Republicans finally stopped sitting on the sidelines and started using the same playbook. And here's Jeff, doing a perfect job of showing just how flimsy that double standard sounds when it's actually said out loud.